Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Navy Dog, A Dog's Days in the U.S. Navy by Neal Kusumoto, Captain, U.S. Navy, retired. Narrated by Monteiro. Seaman Jenna, a no-shitter, Navy terminology for nonfiction. To this day, sailors still whisper of Seaman Jenna, her unforgettable and outrageous legend of one of the most improbable chapters in the U.S. Navy's long history. When I met Jenna, I could never have imagined that she would change the lives of hundreds of sailors and even the course of a Navy warship. That she would become a legend so beloved that even an admiral could not deep-six her. When Jenna met me, she could not have dreamed that I would enlist her for 5 years of military service on a steel ship, that she would travel between the hemispheres, across the wide Pacific, through angry seas and becalmed waters, that she would provide joy and comfort to 225 men hardened by grinding ship's work and half-year separations from their families. Seaman Jenna Vandegrift, U.S. Navy, rose from an orphan scavenging in back alleys to become an icon loved by deck-plate sailors. She was one of thousands of unsung heroes in the Navy, yet became famous despite every attempt to keep a low profile. Her very presence threatened a 3-star admiral, who ordered that she be banished from the naval service. Yet Jenna somehow survived and served for 5 years on USS Vandegrift, a frigate forward deployed in Japan. She was the sole female and only foreign national on that ship, and became the center of attention as soon as she set foot on board. And Jenna was a dog. She was the only canine to become a permanent member of a Navy crew since World War II. We shanghaied Jenna from an animal shelter in Japan, and, breaking Navy protocol, impressed her on board, where she captured the hearts of 225 sailors. There is also the story of a crew forced to leave family and friends, yet overcoming countless obstacles to reach the pinnacle of success. A story highlighting the sacrifices that sailors make for their country, the grueling and foul tasks they perform daily, and the families they leave behind for 6 months at a time, and how one dog made a difference in all their lives. This is a story about the Navy's profound impact around the world and how one crew strove to become the best ship in the Navy while also having the most fun allowed by law. We proved ourselves during the largest naval exercise on the planet by sinking 3 ships and a submarine and shooting 2 jets out of the sky. Through it all, Jenna, a symbol of individuality within a vast Navy ruled by regulations and strict conformity, kept us smiling and human. Jenna was a princess warrior on an all-male ship. She got her way no matter what the captain or anyone else proclaimed. Somehow, some way, she pawed her way into our hearts. She was proud. We were proud. She toured the ship daily, touching base with crew members, especially those who sneaked food to her, and bringing a sense of home to a steel-gray ship of iron men. Jenna made Vandegrift distinctive among the other 300 ships within the Navy bureaucracy. No other ship had a dog on board, and there was no record of a dog having lived on a Navy ship in the last 40 years. Jenna became famous, and we basked in her glamorous glow. She was often spotted walking around the naval base, escorted by a sailor in his white crackerjack uniform, or proudly riding in the passenger seat of the ship's van. Jenna became the figurehead of the Vandegrift, and her presence embossed a unique brand that made the ship stick out in an organization that required conformity. In a sense, though not planned, we were thumbing our collective nose at higher authority. And higher authority, in the form of a powerful admiral, would take notice and strike back. Even the chief of the Navy's top dog, would be drawn into the furry drama. The stories you are about to hear, sea stories if you will, are true. No shitters in Navy parlance. If there is something described that was against the law or regulations, let's assume that part was fabricated to enhance the story. I am proud to say I was the captain of that fine ship, blessed with a magnificent crew that included one special sea dog. 1. Outlandish Proposal. If it's a good idea, go ahead and do it. It's much easier to apologize than it is to get permission. Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, Computer Pioneer. Ensign LaPointe emphatically stated that he did not like the Navy. My spoon stopped halfway to my mouth, and I slowly raised my head to meet his eyes. What did this very junior officer mean by this shocking remark? He explained that an unmarried sailor couldn't have a dog because when he deploys, the dog must stay with someone else, and when he returns, the dog loves that someone else. I wondered, out loud, whether he was really talking about a dog. The officers were eating lunch in the wardroom, which is both a formal dining room with traditions and rules, as well as the only space for officers to relax during off hours. On our frigate, the wardroom was not large, about 20 by 20 feet, most of the space taken up by 2 long rectangular tables, welded to the deck, surrounded by 18 chairs. Not a lot of room left for the relaxing area, which included a 24-inch TV, no satellite or wireless, an elder stereo that was never plugged in, and a wraparound couch that comfortably seated 6 but often held 10. Like the rest of the ship, this space was sparse and gray, the only exceptions being the blue rubberized tablecloths and one small porthole that let us peek outside. Wardroom is also a collective term for all the officers assigned to a ship. To say Lieutenant Kesselring is in the wardroom refers to the space, while Lieutenant Kesselring and the rest of the fucking wardroom are going to conduct an inspection refers to the group of officers. Every wardroom has a different personality. Some are formal, with officers standing at attention in front of assigned seats when the captain arrives, and professional discussions the norm. I preferred a relaxed wardroom, due to my Hawaiian roots, and forbade discussion of work at the table, except for the inevitable critique of the food. Talk could turn in any direction, with verbal shots fired at will. The captain's seat, my seat, was at the head of the larger table, backed to the bulkhead to be able to see everyone. The executive officer, XO, was seated to my left, and the department heads, next in seniority, filled in the nearest seats. The other designated places at my table were for the most junior officer, so he could receive proper mentoring, and the food services officer, so he could receive immediate feedback on the meal. In this case, the junior officer requiring guidance, JORG, pronounced George, was Ensign Matt LaPointe, who had just graduated from the Naval Academy. Standing 6'2" and weighing in at a muscular 235 pounds, he was full of fun, leaning forward to take on any challenge, and like most Naval Academy graduates, already sporting a cynical attitude worthy of an old salt. Ensign Nate Johnston, who had played football on the Naval Academy, was the food services officer. Nate displayed a mixture of quiet enthusiasm, uncertainty of his love for the Navy, and a smooth Southern wit. The mascot dialogue became a mainstay at every meal, gaining momentum and taking on a life of its own. Mascots had been a tradition on Navy ships for more than 100 years, but no ship had embarked a dog since World War II. Mascots in today's Navy are confined to lizards, goldfish, or usually no mascot at all. I soon discovered the ensign's hidden agenda. The USS Cushing was also moving to Japan, and their commanding officer was a good friend of mine. During special evolutions, he made an ensign wear a sweltering lion outfit and prance about the outside decks to amuse the crew. This was not an attractive image for my young warfighters, so we took advantage of their discomfort by discussing a wide range of flamboyant options for doing something similar, or worse. The ensigns had learned the military art of diversion. They believed a dog would take the place of an ensign wearing a hot, embarrassing costume in public. The topic waxed and waned for weeks. We recognized it as one of those ideas that was fun to kick around, but it was just talk. No Navy ship had maintained a dog on board since the 40s. A dog on a Navy ship would be impossible. 2. West to Japan. The sailor's life is at the best a life of danger. He pursues honor on the mountain wave and finds it in the battle and in the storm. President John Tyler. Heavy seas slammed into the hull, sending a hollow explosive echo and shudder through the entire ship. With every strike, the sound wave outpaced the saltwater wave's physical motion as it traversed our 447-foot frigate. That gave us a microsecond warning to grab hold of something. The bow rose with each new swell, reaching an unlikely 40-degree angle pointed toward the leaden sky, pausing dramatically, then crashing down on the back of the next massive wave. Green water trimmed with white foam cascaded over the bow, smearing heavy spray across the bridge windshields. We were battling sustained winds of 40 knots, 45 miles per hour, and 25 to 30-foot waves, which was defined as sea state 5 out of a possible 9. On the bridge, we weren't deliberating about science or wavelengths, sound velocity, the Beaufort sea state scale, or even why we drew a rare and dangerous Santa Ana storm. Even the hot topic of a dog evaporated as we gripped the nearest handhold and wondered how much longer the ship's hull could endure this battering. We had plastic barf bags sticking out of our back pockets that we could quick draw while still focusing on our jobs. Vomit is its own virus, the curdled smell of warm retch quickly provoking a liquefied chain reaction. Vandegrift was en route from San Diego to her new home in Japan, and we were having a rough start. Already depressed about leaving families behind and uncertain about what life would be like overseas, struggling against 3-story waves was not what the crew needed. At meals, we stuffed down food with one hand while holding onto the table and plates and silverware and cups with the other. We timed our bites to the few calm seconds when the ship was in the trough of each wave, letting go of the table just long enough to smash some food into our mouths, then slosh a drink before we roller coastered into the next titanic wave. It was our version of a Nathan's hot dog eating contest, but with flying silverware. After days of holding fast to anything solid, fanatically clinging like a cat avoiding a bath, we finally got past the storm. I had been in serious blows during my 17 years in the Navy, but this was worse than any hurricane. So rough that the waves ripped a hole in the sonar, requiring the ship to enter dry dock in Pearl Harbor for repairs. Despite this violent start to our long voyage, the good idea to get a dog mascot quickly spread throughout the ship. The argument for a live-in dog was unmistakably hopeless, yet the happy buzz continued. Nobody admitted to missing the warmth and comfort of home, but during elongated separations we missed our families' lives, what should have been our lives. We were not there for weddings, divorces, deaths, or births. Only a handful of our families were moving to Japan. The majority stayed in San Diego, separated in time and space from their husbands and fathers. The few families that moved weren't allowed to bring their dogs or cats, as rental properties did not allow pets. Pets, dogs in particular, have a special, almost magical method to unlock human hearts and release pent-up angst. The ensigns soon pegged me as a dog lover, and the talk shifted from fanciful to practical. The question soon changed from, why should we, to why can't we? Based on the Navy bureaucratic storm ahead, the question I should have considered was, why shouldn't we? A triad made up of the commanding officer, CO, executive officer, XO, and command master chief, CMC, leads every Navy ship. Although not a panel or democracy by any means, a good captain involves his 2 most trusted advisors on significant decisions. My executive officer, second in command, was Lieutenant Commander Steve Sloan. Steve and I had served together on a previous ship, a 6'4" giant whose broad Frankensteinian shoulders filled the doorway. He swayed on feet too small to support his frame. He loved golf, but his real passion was to serenade every bar in the Western Hemisphere with his distinctive rendering of the House of the Rising Sun. What luck to have someone so talented and experienced, whom I already trusted as my primary advisor. The third member of the Vandy Triad was Master Chief Mike Ford. Mike was the senior enlisted on board, with more than 20 years of service, and my primary advisor on all things related to the crew. The CMC has great stature based on his proven leadership and extensive sea time. He is charged with ensuring we take care of our young enlisted and preventing the captain from doing something stupid. Again, I was blessed with a great chief who blended old-school, no-nonsense traditions with parental-level concern for the crew. Master Chief was a 5'6" spark plug with a graying crew cut and mustache. His blue eyes could go from twinkling to "you are in big shit" in a nanosecond. Mike is, as loyal as any human being and still checks up on me today. I trust Mike implicitly. If he said the sky would be green tomorrow, I got my camera ready for a unique shot. If you are not a Navy veteran, you might think that the officers run the ship. While technically true, the chief petty officers are the deck plate leaders who make things happen. Mike got wind of the dog good idea and brought it up at our daily meeting in my cabin. I can't remember his exact words, but when he realized that I was considering the idea, "You can't be fucking serious," summed up his point of view. His deck plate analysis, which did not require graphs or PowerPoint slides, was, "We will be the laughingstock of the Navy." The XO, who was still riding the fence, remained silent but couldn't contain a big grin. This put a crimp in things. When the Master Chief expresses a strong opinion, you better listen or be prepared to document a lesson learned. After one spirited discussion, I asked Master Chief to investigate whether there were any rules or regulations prohibiting a dog from living on board a Navy ship. I gave him 2 weeks. He left with a knowing smirk and confident gait. Surely there must be something in the stacks of regulations amassed over 200+ years that forbade this. The wardroom debate continued unabated, gaining strength as we approached the land of the rising sun. Nothing. Despite giving the chiefs more time to research, even after we reached Japan, they found nothing that forbade having a dog on board, other than common sense in their view. Their fresh argument: a dog would stain the ship as a sideshow rather than a lethal warship. I was constantly emphasizing warfighting first, and they exploited that argument. None of the old salts had ever seen a dog aboard a ship. That could not be a coincidence. I did love dogs, but I did not want to become part of McHale's Navy. With the home port change, I got a new boss, Commodore Jerry Ferguson. We were the unproven ship in his squadron of proven winners, and it would take time to prove ourselves in Japan. We didn't need a distraction. In retrospect, I also disregarded what a canine tattoo on my service record might do to my career. The Commodore and his wife turned out to be dog lovers. However, I soon found out that someone higher agreed with Master Chief, the 3-star admiral. 3. An extraordinary enlistment. Big risks bring big success. Admiral John Fisher, in a letter to Winston Churchill. The dog discussion died after we got to Japan. Life was busy. We had all the usual ship's work, plus integrating into the forward-deployed naval forces. We had to acclimate to a foreign country, and to a different ocean, and to a new base, and to a new chain of command, and to separation from our families, and to new foods, and to new customs. Knew everything, except the ship. We even swapped 30 of our shipmates for sailors with the frigate that was heading to the U.S. after we relieved them for their duties. The crew spent less time together when in port. We no longer had breakfast or dinner together to deliberate about mascots or other trivial pursuits, and lunch was less leisurely than those at sea. After we'd been in our new home port for a month, I decided that it was time for Phase 2 of the mascot discussion. I walked to the quarterdeck and had the petty officer of the watch broadcast over the ship's speakers, "Ensign LaPointe, Ensign Johnston, report to the captain on the quarterdeck." Being summoned publicly by the captain is rare and raises alarm bells. Those two showed up breathless and wide-eyed, sporting matching what-have-I-done looks. Of course, I couldn't resist yanking their leashes a little more. I gave them a stern stare and motioned to follow me to my sedan. As we pulled away from the pier, I turned from the front seat. "Let's go to the animal shelter and look at what they have." Storm clouds cleared, and giant grins replaced furrowed brows. We made the short drive to the other side of the naval base. There was no problem finding parking. In fact, there were no cars in sight. As we walked down the deserted road toward the shelter, I must have looked like a Yakuza mob boss framed by two giant henchmen. My tactical orders: do not pick the first one you see. A suitable dog must weigh about 25 pounds, light enough to carry up and down the ship's ladders, steep stairs, yet big enough so it won't get stepped on. We were in a desolate area of the base, surrounded by a few time-worn industrial buildings that were long abandoned. It was so quiet that I could hear the birds singing and even the leaves of the few trees shivering in the light breeze. As we approached the shelter, we saw 6 canine detainees tethered outside. 5 of them jumped up and barked, straining at their chains, raring to meet someone new. This shined a spotlight on the red dog lying in their midst, contemplating us with mild interest. We petted them in turn. When I got to the redhead, I knelt and extended my hand. She delicately sniffed, triangle ears erect and focused forward, head slightly cocked as she studied me. She was beautiful, despite her time in a kennel, a red fox with front paws elegantly crossed. Bemused dark eyes with just a sliver of white around the edges of huge irises appraised me. I wondered who was judging whom. She had a white crest extending from her chest down to her undercarriage, an inverse racing stripe that proved to be fitting, and the tips of her paws were trimmed in white. Her coat was medium length, smooth, reddish golden with cinnamon highlights, and her bushy tail curled up toward her back when she stood up. Her feathers, the longer hair on her hind legs, were creamsicle wisps of orangish red and white, like those of a golden retriever. She had it all: beauty, intelligence, and a quiet calm. What we didn't know was her independent personality, her strength of will, her street-honed adaptability, and her feminine ability to manipulate 225 men. It was love at first sight. Our search was over. We went inside to talk to the private first class about adoption. The Army, which ran veterinary clinics for all military services, is not known for flexibility with rules and regulations. There was immediate confusion. How can a ship adopt a dog? Nothing in their manual covered this situation. Being a commander in uniform on a Navy base moved things along. I signed the paperwork as Jenna's sponsor. She weighed 28 pounds, and I could feel her ribs as I lifted her down from the aluminum table. The clinic estimated she was about 2 years old. We would never discover anything about her history. The breed listed on her record was Shiba. We discovered later that she was a Shiba Inu, and quickly found out what that meant. What was her story? How long had she been on the streets? Was she from a Navy family or from a Japanese home? Did someone let her loose because they had to transfer? Did she escape? She would prove that few things could detain her. Although we never found out about her past, I visualized Jenna living a traditional life with a Japanese family until she got separated. I imagined her sitting in a tiny apartment, listening to the sounds of the city. Japan is densely packed, and everything, houses, cars, dogs, comes in economy-sized packages. I imagined perhaps her owner took Jenna for short walks along the urban streets each morning before work, and then for a stroll in one of the local parks after work. Jenna would see lots of people and a few dogs, with whom she'd exchange a formal sniff. Her owner would cook a small dinner for herself and serve Jenna's meal in a bright Hello Kitty bowl, which Jenna secretly hated. Maybe that was why she left. They would settle in for some TV, catching one of those crazy game shows where contestants smile while getting the crap smacked out of them by a giant pink-padded battering ram. Jenna's life would have been pleasant, sedate, and orderly, everything around her pruned and clipped and cleaned. This, or an ordered life like it, was what I imagined Jenna had experienced before her induction into the U.S. Navy. Jenna was now assigned to the Navy's finest guided missile fast frigate. Her life had changed like that of no other dog, and our lives would change like that of no other Navy crew. What was the first thing Jenna did on board? A grand ceremony to meet and greet the crew? A tour of her new quarters? No, I took her into the wardroom galley and bathed her with my shampoo in the deep sink where the dishes got washed. Probably broke a dozen sanitary regulations. She was rather fragrant, and we couldn't have a stinky sailor on board. She did not appreciate the bath, splaying her legs to stay out of the sink like one of those cartoon cats, and then trying to leap out whenever she felt my hands relax. My first taste of her iron will, and her first taste of mine. I established myself as the alpha male. At least that's what I thought. Time would tell. Matt and Nate went to the commissary, grocery store, to buy dog food, bowls, and other necessities that were not available through the Navy supply system. We were ill-prepared. We planned for new crew arrivals many months in advance, yet this was what we called a pop-up. A pop-up is an aircraft, missile, or ship that is detected at the last minute because it is at low altitude, small, or stealthy. Because it is close by the time we spy it, a pop-up requires immediate action. Jenna had popped up in our lives, and we were now on her schedule. Jenna met her new family, her shipmates, in many venues. In her first months, she was skittish, unable to find her way around a house that was different than anything she had ever encountered, than any dog had encountered. Instincts did not help, as her ancestors over 9 centuries had never lived in an environment with no grass, trees, or other canines. She was disoriented on a metal ship smelling of oil, smoke, gunpowder, fried food, and men. Visitors to the ship often commented on the heavy oil, fuel, smoky scent, something we no longer noticed. A dog's sense of smell is 10,000 times more sensitive than ours. A common analogy is that humans can smell a teaspoon of sugar in their coffee, but Jenna could detect it in 1,000,000 gallons of water. If ship smells were strong to humans, they must have been overpowering to her. Add in 225 new friends who were anxious to meet her, many approaching too fast or too directly for her taste. The dog lovers took her on walks and rides and showed her around the ship. Jenna must have missed the peaceful shelter during her first days aboard, but she quickly found spots where she could have me time. Jenna was loved and cared for from day one. She soon discovered the smoke deck, a small outside area amidships where sailors congregated to light a coffin nail and talk. Non-smokers also hung out there to shoot the shit, and Jenna learned it was the place to see and be seen. And more important, to collect off-the-record food handouts. To my knowledge, she never had a cigarette, but I am sure she tasted every foodstuff produced on the mess decks and every snack sold in the ship's store, despite my explicit orders that she not be fed anything but dog food. Do you understand the fearsome power of a Navy commanding officer? Well, Jenna superseded this long-held law of the sea, and it wasn't even a close contest. Imagine her sitting at attention in front of you, foxy ears pointed at the sky, black mottled nose twitching in anticipation, licking her lips while glancing from your face to your hands and back again to meet your eyes. Could you have resisted? She gained 10 pounds in her first month aboard, a 40% increase that filled out her frame. Enlisting in the Navy is a decision that changes the path of one's life. Although Jenna's enlistment was more shanghaied than voluntary, she joined the Vandy crew and became famous.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?